Yeah. Not even 2 weeks ago. Well, a little over exactly 2 weeks ago, or yesterday, this guy was about to be euthanized. Now, he's in Yucca Valley, Dome Land, running free. In this beautiful green desert land. So green, so cool. This guy's pumped. Look at him, he's a good boy. It's always about like not putting a dog in a situation that's gonna stress them out. You know, like if we know a behavior is taking place, there's no point in then like, oh, let's put the dog in that situation and make that behavior happen again so we can fix it. Like we already know the behavior that's a problem, so we need to set the dog up for success, you know, and it's like a really important thing to do. And there's so many dogs where it's like, oh, they'd be great on a farm. It's like, yeah, well, most dogs would be great on a farm. But where are you gonna find a farm, you know, and so that's like the challenging stuff. So finding dogs that can be placed in the community, yeah, it can be very difficult. All right, let's get out of here. You picked a fine time to leave me, Lucille. I worked full-time for about a year. But there's something that they call compassion fatigue. You know, it's a very difficult environment to work in, and you get really drained because it can be sad, heartbreaking always, you know. And so I feel like, you know, 15 to 20 hours is a way to stay involved in the work without like really draining yourself. Everybody that works here full time, like I could just give them props. It's just one of the hardest things to do. It's really difficult, you know. There's no holidays off. It's like 24/7 because like a hospital, you know, snowstorms, whatever the weather, like, and just getting these dogs out and just trying to help give them some sense of like a life. To talk about a dog's prey drive and ignore our prey drive is really interesting. And we've taken like, just in this short span of time, 100 years maybe or less, these animals, and we expect them to live in a home and be pets. Do you know what I mean? I expect each one to be able to do that. And if you can't do that, you gotta go. You know, and I'm not saying that's not the answer, because a dog like Alger, you can't ethically put him in a community. You can't do it, you know? A dog who kills another dog, can you ethically place him somewhere? You know, and that's the heartbreak of it all. And that's why I was like, solutions. How do we find solutions? Knowledge. How do we find knowledge? Well, you need to start studying. So right away, that's just what I started doing. When you're in service of others, like living beings, dogs, people, whatever it is, it's a lot less about your ego and a lot more about them, the other person. And that's why training dogs for me is everything, because that's what life should be about, like the other people, the other creatures. Thing about music for me, like playing instruments, you don't always necessarily have to have like an instrument to be playing the instrument. Everything in life is like a rhythm, everything. Like you think about when you walk down, when you go down your steps, if you're in a rush, if you're not in a rush, like it's all over. Like the wind, the bird, the car going by. I definitely have been able to take that feeling at times when I need to, that feeling of like just being in your own place with your instrument and just being able to apply that like outside of life, especially when like the mind gets really noisy. Training dogs, I think probably why I've taken to it is because when you like start to connect with the animal, there is sort of this like back and forth, like it just kind of starts to like lock in, and it's really cool. And that's when like the learning happens. That's the same with like jiu-jitsu, or when you're playing an instrument and you're just like practicing a scale to a metronome, or you're training like a technique in jiu-jitsu. 10 arm bars each side. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you flip to the other side. It's, you know, all that stuff across the board is the same in my mind, and it's all about finding like that synchronicity with like whatever it is you're engaging with at the time. And so with dogs, like, it's one of my favorite things. Is like, especially if you're working with a dog in the shelter world, say, and they're so stressed out, and then as you're working with them, you start to see them like come down, and then like, you know, you're here, the dog's like here, and then it like starts to like even out, and then you're just starting to train, and then you're just like, and even if it's just a simple like retrieve of the ball, it's like, you know, and like, that's what it is, bro. That's like the universal pulse and everything. The biggest challenge probably in the shelter world is that, you know, when they get out of their kennels, they're so worked up, and then we're trying to fit them with the right equipment to try to teach them. It can be very difficult, but Tony does really well in this. He's a really, really smart dog. And, you know, I assume he likes to train. And what I mean by that is, as a dog trainer, a lot of the times I guess we have to assume the dog wants to train. And that's always a tricky thing in my mind. So I think he likes it, or he just really likes food, or a little bit of both. Sit. Oh, that's a good boy. That's a good. He's a good dog, man. He's a good dog. Handsome boy, right? All right, we're gonna walk. I'm just taking him for a walk, okay? All right, come on. You do. No, he's been here quite some time. He's a really good dog, but there's just certain behavioral things that we have really hard time like fixing for him to make him adoptable. And fixing is even a terrible word, because what's there to fix with the dog? He's a great dog. Fixing in the sense of making him fit into the human world. So there's like those kind of cases that can be really, really frustrating, because he's a brilliant dog, super loving, but then has moments where he's overstimulated, biting at your arm, and just getting, you know, he can be intimidating because he's big and strong. So there's always those type of cases happening. And that's what keeps me up at night sometimes. So yeah, but equipment is really, really key when working with a particular dog. That's it. Well, the other thing about her was like, she was with me like through breakups, like through bad relationships. Like we like, you know, if I was with a girl and we lived together in that house, like when I left or that ended, like she came with me. Like that, she was everything, bro. She was everything, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what they do. And it's like a really weird like agreement, because they do it because like, oh, I need to go with this person because they helped me survive, you know? And we're like, you need to come with me because you helped me survive. You know what I'm saying? And that's the beauty of the whole relationship. It's a fascinating relationship to me, and I always do wonder why God like made humans and dogs like that thing, you know? But I suppose we could do it with any. And so when she passed, like, I grieved for sure. It was really difficult. But I just was like, just start playing, like keep playing music. Because prior to her, I had like this little project. I was playing music on the beach, and I met this female vocalist, and like, we were just kind of doing these cool shows like on the boardwalk there, and like people would come down and like hit the drum. It was just cool. It was a cool vibe, you know, very like Venice. And then after that project kind of dwindled at the same time. Tipsy passed. And so then I was like, now what? But I started writing music again. And the first song I wrote was about her. I never knew about love. Yet I grew from love. And all the time that I cry from love. So these kennels operate with like a guillotine. The dog stays on the front of the kennel. That's usually where they eat, they sleep, right? During operating hours, the kennel stays closed because they get out for walks to go to the bathroom. But at night, not the kennel, I'm sorry. During operating hours, the guillotine stays closed. They stay on the front of their kennel. But at nighttime, the guillotine has to stay up so they have a full kennel in case they have to go to the bathroom, which most of them do, you know? So they usually come to the back of their kennel or go to the bathroom and then go back to like their, let's say, living quarters on the front of the kennel. But I could imagine having to like not want to go to the bathroom where I'm like sleeping and stuff, and then eventually just not being able to hold it. You have to go to the back of your bedroom, go to the bathroom, and then go back to the other side of your bedroom and go to sleep, you know? So something I think about a lot, you know, and I just don't think it's easy. It would be easy for any creature or animal ever. So normally, you know, if the kennel population is full, then there's a dog in each kennel right next to each other. But when COVID hit, a lot of dogs started leaving shelters because people were home and they were like, I'm gonna go get a dog. Awesome, I'm gonna get a dog, which is great in some ways. But now that things are going to like post-COVID, there's lots of dogs we think might start coming back, you know, because now it's no longer convenient to have the dog at home when people are going back to work. Also seen an uptick in like anxiety cases with dogs because they're so used to being around their people now, and now anytime their person leaves the house, they're freaking out because for the last 2 years they've been used to just being together all the time. So it's really interesting. And I do think in the shelter industry, there's sort of this talk like, hey, are we going to get this huge influx of dogs coming back? Not only are they going to come back, they're going to come back probably with behavior problems, like more behavior problems than they might have had or didn't have at all. So it should be a really interesting time. But yeah, each dog gets their own kennel, but when it's full, there's a dog in each kennel side by side, and like it's just constantly moving. So when it's like chill and quiet is when you get to like sit back and really kind of get some things done, you know? Sometimes you just feel like you're just scrambling just to help every dog as much or as little as possible. So that's always challenging. I kept seeing a post from one of the rescues I followed. I kept seeing this post on Instagram. It was brought to the shelter. He was found as a stray in Compton or South Central. And he was like, his picture, like every time I saw it, I was like, man, I feel like I'm supposed to get this dog. Am I like supposed to go get this dog? And I would like ran it by like my roommates. I'm like, hey man, I think like I'm supposed to go get this dog. I cannot shake the feeling that I'm supposed to get this dog. And his picture would keep coming up, you know? And I really wanted to think on it though, because I didn't want to just be like, well, you know, you just lost Tipsy and maybe you're trying to fill that void. Because it wasn't. This was already like 6 months later, you know what I'm saying? And I was just making sure it wasn't that. This was more of like, I want to just go help this particular dog. I don't know why. And so I called the rescue. He was actually slated to be euthanized the day I went and picked him up. So they were going to put him down because they just didn't have the space for him, which is the case in a lot of shelters. They just run out of space, particularly like LA, a lot of pit bulls, chihuahuas, but they're just so overrun with dogs. So a dog comes in for like a month and it's like, oh, or whatever the case, however amount of time, we can't find you a home. You're either going to be put down, you got to be put down, you know? And then they just, it's really sad. It's gotten better, I believe, but it's still, I mean, it's a real reality. Dogs just get put to sleep just because we don't have space. You know, imagine we did that for people.